That was that was mostly an accident. Um,
Oh, yeah.
wasn't not necessarily planned. It worked, I guess. Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't wanna stop it. Once it got started, I didn't wanna stop it. Anyways, welcome to another episode of, again, the Science Dum Dums. This is a series, a show, a however long it lasts. It's a thing we're doing, Richard and myself, where just two normal, I guess, average humans, science amateurs, if you will, where we discuss conversation about just science, just science and all that stuff. You want to intro yourself, Richard?
Yep. I am Richard Fletcher. So, uh, YouTube moniker, engineer of reality. So, do nothing but post a bunch of university studies and just read a lot about different science subjects. That's
Nice,
about it. Yep.
nice. Um, I don't have a awesome science YouTube channel. I'm just using my regular YouTube channel. I don't even know what you can find it under, Edgar Antillon. You can find it right now, just this and then some other various stuff. It has no rhyme or reason. There's really no any of that stuff. So it's not consistent. I'm not consistent. I've got some filming stuff on there. I've got video game building on there, and also got this stuff on there. So, and maybe I'll do some other stuff, electronic repair, something that I'm trying to get into as well. But you definitely find this there, and then on my Facebook page, I believe, as well. And again, if you just Google my name, you should be able to find it. As always, one of the things that I've gotten in the habit of doing is if fact checking stuff um, that we talked about last week, and I just want to pull up my notes. I don't think there was much. I don't know if you remember anything. I don't know if you have any fact checking that you want to do. I think I
Mm,
forgot to send you the transcript, to be honest with you. So I think that's mostly my fault. Um, but I did want to do some fact checking. Not much. It there wasn't a ton that we needed to fact check, but w- and it's not major. It's actually pretty small things, which means that we're actually getting better at this stuff. At least at explaining ourselves and where we're coming from in our context. But I think it's still good that we do some fact checking or just some more give some more context to the stuff that we're talking about. So one
I
of
think we're
go
getting better at live Googling. That's all it is.
for sure getting better at that. I think the biggest one was the the clusters,
Mhm.
the bullet cluster. We had described the bullet cluster as two galaxies colliding, and it's not that. It's galaxy clusters colliding, not galaxies colliding. Again, it's a small little difference, but it is a difference because it is a bullet cluster. It's not a bullet galaxy. And I obviously the difference is individual galaxies versus many galaxies in one cluster colliding. So two separate clusters of galaxies colliding, and that's where you get all of the gases and all that stuff. So last week, if you weren't there, we talked about dark energy and dark matter. I think everything else was overall okay. I think the other one was probably our conversation about Hawking's radiation and how light does interact with um, with the black holes. I kind of made a mention that the Hawking's radiation, which I think is incorrectly named, only because Hawking gets credited for it, but the only way he came about it was trying to prove somebody else wrong, and he actually proved them correct. So it should be named after that scientist, not after Stephen Hawking's. That's my take on it. But at any rate, Hawking's radiation and the ring that we see around the in the pictures for black holes is not the same thing. It's two different things, and I think I characterize it as the same thing, and it's not the same thing. So I think those are the only corrections or clarifying whatever we that I thought we needed to do. So that's where I'm at with that. Um, what else did we fuck up?
Usually everything. Been a long day. All right. I don't know. I don't have the transcripts.
Yeah, you don't have the transcript, so I think
I just changed my PC, so
I think you kind of edited yourself out. It sounded like you used some bad words and you hit the dump button is what they call it in radio.
Oh.
Yeah, it was weird.
Oh. I said I changed out my PC, so I don't have things saved here.
Yeah. We're good. You're just gonna have to trust me. That was all that was there. There's other stuff that I put up into ChatGPT, which again, take it for what it's worth, to fact check me. And it tried to claim that when I said we had this conversation about how the Earth can be reduced to a size of whatever it was, 9 centimeters, or I forget what the number was. It tried telling me, and I said the Earth cannot become a black hole. It just cannot become a black hole. It doesn't have enough matter to collapse on itself. ChatGPT tried telling me, well, it can become a black hole if it gets compressed. So I had to ask. I was like, but how would it compress? It was like, well, it needs to collapse on itself. Like, correct. So how would that happen? It was like, well, it needs enough mass and matter for it to get, like, there you go. So it doesn't have enough matter. It doesn't have enough mass for it to collapse on itself. It's all, I mean, if you could compress it down to that size, but naturally it cannot happen. It just doesn't have enough matter. This is why you have to be careful with ChatGPT and AI in general. I think even more so with Grok, because it's wrong almost all the time.
But Grok is really snooty about it. Like it's wrong, and then it's going to tell you that it's you. It's not getting it.
It's like being married then.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I'm saying that both ways, not just one way or another. It's just like being married. It's like, you're wrong, and here's why you're wrong. Like, no, we have the recording. Like, no, you heard that wrong too. Yeah, Grok.
Have you ever pissed it off? It was like, look, I'm not going to argue with you. That's what it told me once. So I agree.
Grok.
Yeah.
No, I've used it enough to know that it's probably the worst large language model out there. I've used it enough to know it absolutely sucks. I get a lot of movie scenes. I don't know why my Twitter algorithm is mostly weird movie scenes with a narrator talking about describing what it is. It's weird. And sometimes it seems interesting. I want to know what movie it is. And people have asked the same question, Grok, what movie is this? And then you go look it up, it's like nowhere close to what the movie was. It's wrong. I would say about 90% of the time. It's weird for it to be wrong that many times. Anyways, today's topic, it's in the title. You guys know what the title is. Today's topic is about our existence. Richard, I think I'm not wrong when I say that you would probably characterize yourself as a Christian. I myself am not a Christian, although I would also say that I wouldn't characterize myself as an atheist either. I would
Mm.
not say that I'm an atheist either. I'm just not a religious human. I don't know where I land. I don't know. Question mark. Don't know where I'm
Yeah.
at, but I definitely would not say that I'm an atheist either. And today's topic kind of has this conversation about our existence, not necessarily creation, but and we can most definitely talk about that because I do believe it's some science to that. But are we a mathematically inevitable? Is our existence mathematically inevitable? What say
Are
you?
we statistical
Accident?
Did we get lucky, or like how did this work?
Yeah, that's the question. Um, that is kind of the question. I mean, not just for you, but for everyone. Is I tried looking up studies, and surprisingly, there's not that many. Like there isn't a ton of information about this hypothesis. It's scientifically speaking more of a hypothesis than it is a theory. The difference between the two, a theory is commonly in science something that people agree on, and they still call Einstein's math in his relativity, both general and special. They still call them theories, even though they've been proven, even though they have evidence for it. They still call them theories, just because in science that's is what they agree on. So there's a difference between hypothesis and theory in science. I think most humans use theory as it's not proven yet. In science, it's kind of the like we can prove something, still call it a theory,
Yeah.
which is weird, but that's language for you. So, anyways, there's not many things on this. I don't know what you found. I don't know. I didn't give you much time. I was a bad human, and I didn't give you the information till today. Um, so I don't know what you
So
found.
I mean, you can start with the physics side of it.
Go.
Universe pretty much operates on laws. Um, Basically, they're not really laws, but constraints. So you have energy conservation, you have entropy, you have quantum fields. Um, they're Once you have constraints, though, that means you have no more infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
Basically, you have a solution. It has to be a combination of constraints that causes things to form. So once you have that kind of a space for things to form, you have things like matter that start to organize. Uh, you have atoms that form, molecules that form, stars, planets, and they that's what makes the universe stable, pretty much.
Well, I came across this because my wife and I we watched a video. It was talking about mutations, and this is really what kind of you could say inspired this thought. And it was talking more about molecule mutation and would a mutation survive, and what would it take for a mutation to survive? Um how many mutants, I guess you would call it would it take to continue that mutation and get to a point where it actually overtakes the original molecule, or call it whatever you want, but it starts off as an original, and then some sort of mutation comes in, or a different one, and then now you get a hybrid of two molecules. And again, it just there's a mutation, and some mutations don't thrive. An example would be in animals, you see a lot of I forget which way it goes, but a liger and a tigon, one way or another, you are sterile. Um,
Hmm.
oh, mules, right? I think mules are male mules, or depending on which one it is sterile, and it's that one. So you'll never have that overtake. There'll never be a ligon or a tigon, liger, and a tigon overtake lions and tigers. It just doesn't happen enough. There's not enough mutation, and then one of them is actually sterile, so you can't have that happen. So
Hmm.
it's that was just an analogy. That was just an example. But it's this idea that the we've been around, what, 13 billion years. The universe is 13 billion years. It seems like a lot, and for us it definitely is. We've been around 300,000 years. If you listen to the science, we've been around for about 300,000 years. Homo sapiens, humans, 300,000 years. So we've had 13 billion years of potential mixing and matching and dying off and mutations, and we've had enough time for the math to work itself out, where in 13 billion years, ta-da, here we are.
Hmm. Yep. So basically, we're basically a repeated pattern. That's what it is. You can put an anomaly in a pattern and basically deflect the pattern into a different pattern as long as it. Um, so yeah, basically our universe creates structure. Um, that's pretty much what it is. How does it extend to life? It's because life is just another form of organized matter. So
And it's pretty good at it too. Like it's surprising. There's always this battle between evolution and religion, or science and religion, which I'm a firm believer. I think you've mentioned this before, where like they can coexist and they actually can work together. Like you can have intelligent
mhm,
creation and end up with the same results. Like they don't need to necessarily be mutually exclusive. They can operate together. Again, I'm not saying I believe that. I don't know,
yeah,
but there's always this conflict between, we were created by a higher being, a deity, and we evolved to be here. Now, one of the arguments we get in evolution is, where are all the in betweens? And I think that's because most humans genuinely believe that if you and I hang around the ocean long enough, at some point we're going to become whales. Um,
mhm,
and there's a lot of humans who genuinely believe that we literally came from monkeys, apes, or a fish. It literally started off as a, but that's not the way it happens. It's you have a bird that mutates, and that mutation thrives in certain areas. We could look at humans, right? If you look at humans that are in southern Mexico, they're going to be darker than I am. My parents are from northern Mexico, a lot more light complected. Not all of them, but the further down south you go, the shorter they are, hairier, because it starts to get hotter. There's humans in desert area, right? In the Middle East, you get a lot of people that look like Mexicans, because again, the
yep,
climates are really hot, very dry, so a lot more hair, and obviously the hairy stuff allows us to stay cool because it collects the moisture, and like that's a mutation. Now you take humans who are in colder climate, less hair, the little bit taller. So, but that mutation thrived in in those particular climates. I'm not a biologist by any means, but you
yep,
can look at simple stuff like that, where like you see the mutations thrive. We're still human, but at some point, if we are to believe evolution, we will mutate into something completely different. Now, in 300,000 years, I don't think there's been enough time for us to mutate into something else. But you do see this in animals, where you can claim it's the in between, but it's really just a mutation that thrived better in one particular area versus another one. And at some point, it ends up being a completely different species because it mutated enough and it thrived enough, and it's kind of separated itself from that. But it's still a bird. It's still a human.
Yeah.
It's still a
Want to I don't want to turn this into
turn it.
a religious show, but uh for Christians that say, they'll argue against evolution because they'll say, well, if you were created and God created you, then evolution would mean that God made mistakes, and then the evolution is correcting mistakes. That's where the Christians kind of fall away from science. The way I believe is it coexists. What you have a one word called adaptability. God created you and made you adaptable to different climates so that you can continue to survive. And so that's that's where science and religion can come together on that.
Yeah.
Evolution is not wrong. Is you weren't created by evolution. You were created by a deity, by God, and then you evolve to whatever climate um, or situation that you were in.
I
So
didn't
yeah,
realize that that was a big hang up from the religion.
yeah, that's pretty much where that hang up is.
Huh. That's interesting. I thought um I would have thought it was something else. But that's such a small little hang up. Like it's such a small little thing. Because even if you really think about it, the evolution side of it is pretty fucking perfect. Like
Mhm.
it's the reason. So to say that God didn't make you perfect is like, well, maybe he just created molecules and was like, let's see what happens, and then it happened. I'm sure it was a little more complex than them according to religious humans, but yeah, it's an interesting way of thinking about this stuff. I've got some resources, and I didn't read them all because I just didn't have enough. Reassessment of heart steps, Daniel B. Mills et al. A reassessment of the heart steps model for the evolution of intelligent life. Science Advances 2025. That one's there. Blount et al. Contingency. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Contingent contingency and determinism in evolution. Um, there's one where the concept, the idea would be the life is probably more common
Mhm.
because of abiogenesis. I think I'm saying that correctly. Abiogenesis and planetary abundance. That's the other thing is we have so many galaxies, so many planets, so many. Whereas just if you look at just math,
Right.
it's coincidence. I get it, but it's one of those. It's you're talking about trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of all of it combined. Molecules, planets, uh,
Mhm.
solar systems, galaxies. Like it's crazy. So the other one, Spiegel and Turner, 2012, PNAS. Um, Bayesian analysis of the astrobiological implications of life's early emergence on Earth. Kipping, 2020. Sasilov, Grotzinger, Sutherland, 2020. Science Advances, the origin of life as a planetary phenomenon. So, anyways, if you do a general Google search, there's a few of them out there. There's not a whole lot um, on that stuff, but yeah. Anyways, I want to give you time to rebuttal or say stuff about it.
Um, so again, going back to the physics side, you have systems have a tendency to move towards lower energy states. So electrons basically settle into lowest orbitals. Chemical bonds form just because it lowers total energy. Um, so the reason that matter even exists or matter comes together is just because it's the most efficient way possible. It's what costs less energy than for it to be separated. So we had to, or we're made up of matter, just a certain type of matter that formed together in order. Um, we're just consequences, pretty much, of all those constraints.
See,
Um,
and this is where I thought the religious side had the issue with is that we're just an accident versus something that was more created out of love and out of whatever, and closeness. Because when you say we're just a consequence of all the shit that collide, because there's nothing explaining that, and it's really difficult to explain it. This is where I think the humans who believe in religion have a saving grace, I guess, if you will, is nobody can explain how something was created out of nothing. Like it just, like, where did all the energy come from? Because it's a lot of energy. If we are to believe science, science says energy cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. It just is, right? Like it's just spreading. So where did that's a
and,
lot of energy.
and where
That
did it come
is,
from?
it's a crazy amount of energy, right? Because it created the sun, it created all of the black holes, it created not just our sun, but every single sun that's out there. And like that's an immense amount of energy that came out of nowhere. So
And
I
the only
get
thing
it.
we can do is measure frequency, magnetism, wavelength. You can measure it in different ways, but where's it coming from?
Yeah, where's it coming from? So yeah, when you say we're just a consequence, it's I do. I am a nihilist. I do genuinely believe that there's no point to any of this stuff. This is where my conflict is with religion. Is in religion, there's a purpose, and you were created for a purpose. And for me, it's just like in 100 years, nobody's going to remember this podcast. This podcast is not even going to be on YouTube. YouTube's not going to hold it, or whatever exists in 100 years. Like in 100 years, you and I will be forgotten, and we see this in history. Like there's a lot of people that don't know who even Einstein is. There's a lot of people that don't even know our presidents, and people are like, well, these are people in history, but we're gonna forget them. Like people are gonna forget us, so there's really no point. I genuinely believe that. So that's what leans me more closely to this idea of we are just some randomness created
Mhm.
out of what you say is just the consequence of shit colliding and coming together, and one molecule from one planetary system kissing with another one, and we disregard chemistry, or we have disregarded chemistry, but we can't disregard chemistry. Is um the collection of all that stuff. Alchemy is what some people would call it. But it's you mix one thing with another thing. What you Clorox, what we know as Clorox chlorine, it's you mix that with sodium, and all of a sudden you have sodium chloride, and then it seasons your food really awesomely. Um, yeah, and there's many evident. There's a lot of examples like that where just come H2O. Just oxygen itself is pretty bad for you, but it
Right.
mixed in with other stuff and processed through your body, it's pretty awesome. And then you add that to some water, some hydrogen, and all of a sudden you can drink it. It's crazy. It's nuts to think of all the chemistry that created us. So the question from my wife is, do I think I'm a deist? I don't even know what the fuck that is. So right now I'm going to say no because I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
What's the deist? Deist meaning a person who believes in the existence of a supreme creator, a god of nature based on reason and observation of the natural world. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I maybe, maybe, maybe. I just don't know. Oh,
So, I mean, if you think about it, like gas clouds or something, they have to, you know, you give, you factor in gravity and time. Gas clouds are going to pretty much collapse into themselves with enough gravity pulling them in. Things like standard space dust. Once gravity pulls it together, um, it basically collapses, and that's how stars are formed. Stars are made up of heavy elements. That's how planets are. Um, so I mean, it's not that rare if you think.
which is another blow, um, right? Because it's awesome to think that we are very unique in trillions and trillions of planetary systems and galaxies and this universe, how expansive it is. It's nice to think that you're very unique, and there's a lot of evidence that to your point, and a lot of these papers that have been written about it, that maybe we're just not that rare. The math says that we're not that rare. The statistical probability says that we're not that rare, but there's also no proof of it. And I think it might be more of our limitation than anything else. We're just incapable of seeing a lot of the stuff. So
Yeah. Um, so it's not really fighting physics. Um, Life is more enabled by physics.
yeah, well, they has to. It's kind of it's impossible for it not to be molded by physics because everything is physics. Um, yeah, I've got nothing else. I think we've said everything. I think I said everything that I wanted to say.
Mhm.
Um, it's one of these conversations we just don't have any much evidence because, like a lot of science, we just don't know.
No one's studying. That's the issue. Is that there's no one out there really studying what why life exists, why we are formed.
I wonder why that
Yeah.
is. Like I was
Well, if
actually
you
very,
think about it,
yeah.
I mean, matter with flowing energy becomes a structure. So think like hurricanes or tornado cells or even rivers, how they're formed. So once you put energy to matter, it forms a structure. Um, what's common with the two of them is because they dissipate energy. They basically have energy that comes together and then dissipates energy in another way, or it transforms energy and does it very efficiently. So whenever energy flows through a system, um, it basically just forms a structure that's really not an option.
Yeah, but
Um,
it leads to the why, like the never ending why.
mhm.
And I think that's the problem. It's just you can explain all day long a tornado and a hurricane and whatever, but it just like but the why. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, what I'm saying is that life might be just a really advanced form of energy dissipation. So like we form a structure and that's our why, is just to dissipate energy efficiently.
no, but that doesn't answer the why. That answers the how
Yeah.
and it answers the what, but I don't think it answers the why.
You have to be the one that needs energy. Or
Yeah. But I was super surprised. I was very surprised on how little there's a handful of them. There's some stuff on there. But if we look at string theory, if we look at quantum physics, if we look at the other physics, There's a lot of papers. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of thesis. There's a lot of people writing on this issue, and I was very surprised on because a lot of it is evolution. A lot of it is evolution, but I don't think evolution is really digging deep enough to this because it's mainly talking about the evolution of shit that already exists. It's already here.
Mhm.
It's not really talking about like how did this planet create so much life. So if you think about the millions and millions, if not billions, of critters that exist on Earth, like
Mhm.
yeah, it's an insane amount of. Because now you have to think about the math and the probability of an ant being created and the ant and us being related, or fucking banana and us sharing a lot of DNA. And that's the other stuff. Maybe I do have more to talk about because you start to talk about DNA, and then it's not just DNA. It's I had my notes up here. You start to talk about DNA, and then RNA, and then mRNA, and then tRNA, and these are all kinds of NAs that communicate with each other to create life. So DNA is a long-term storage of genetic instructions, and then RNA is often the working copy of or messenger that helps use those instructions. mRNA carries instructions from the DNA to cell machinery. tRNA helps bring amino acids together to build proteins. rRNA is part of the structure of uh, ribosomes, which make proteins. So now all of this stuff needs to work together in a banana to make it a fucking banana. And then all of this needs to work together in a chimpanzee to make it a chimpanzee. And then just one slight variation, and again, not a biologist, but you get a one small variation and now you've got a human instead of a banana. And now you get like that's crazy how
Yeah.
many different life forms. And all of
Um,
it was towards the end of the 13 billion. So it's almost like it took 13 billion years to perfect whatever it is that it needed to perfect. Because our Earth, how many 6 billion years? Like it's how old is Earth? How old is Earth?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it stopped.
Four and a
I think
half
that
billion.
we're the I don't think we're the final form here.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So we're 4.5 billion years um to create the and out of those 4.5 billion years, we haven't had life the way we know it, dinosaurs, critters, all that shit the entire time. So it
Mhm.
even if you call it 10 billion years, it took 10 billion years of trillions of collisions and mixes and mutations for it to finally create the bacteria that would eventually create us.
Hmm.
Crazy. Crazy. I want to know what RNA is. Uh,
So basically, given energy flow, physical laws, and enough time, the universe is just producing structure and then
uh,
complexity, and then systems that process information, which is brains, our human brains.
RNA is ribonucleic acid. Ribonucleic acid. Um,
Yeah.
hmm, crazy. Anyways, life is weird. The fact that we're here is weird.
Yeah.
This whole thing
I think,
is
I think
fucking
we come to that same conclusion
all
at
the time.
every show, right?
All the time.
Yeah.
Like, that's the ending note all the time. This is just fucking weird. This is weird. The more I dig into this, and the more just it's just so weird. Just so weird. Isaac in the other podcast, he brought up the fact that Jupiter is not a gas giant. That it's actually it's got, even though they call it a gas giant, a lot of it is liquid. Uh,
Mm,
and it's true, but only because of the amount of pressure on the gas, it converts it into liquid.
right.
So if you had that same liquid on Earth, it would not have enough pressure to pressurize it, and it would be a gas. But because it's in Jupiter, and Jupiter's so fucking massive, its mass in its atmosphere pressurizes it to the point where it just becomes the liquid. So we still call it a gas giant because that liquid at a certain point it doesn't have enough pressure to be a liquid, and it's a gas. It's a gas.
Yeah,
Uh,
Jupiter has a higher gravitational pull, gravitational effect because of its mass.
Say that again. Your mic keeps cutting off. I'm telling you,
Oh,
it's molecules that are censoring you.
yeah. So I said Jupiter, because of its mass, has a higher gravitational pull or gravitational effect, pretty much, which is what's compressing into liquid or
The
compressing
gas,
gas into liquid.
it's the gases into liquid. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
If those same gases were on Mercury, Venus, or even us, it would just be a gas. It would just be a gas. In fact, that gas here on Earth can be converted into liquid, but it has to be pressurized, highly, highly pressurized. We see that a lot with a lot of liquids. They're gases, but under certain pressure, but that's fucking weird. That was my
Mhm.
point. That shit's is weird. Um, at any rate, our human existence is. I don't think we covered anything that is super unique. But I would challenge humans to kind of study this a little bit more. But humans that are smarter than I am to study this topic a little bit more, because I was a little disappointed that I don't have that much information, and maybe we never have it. Maybe we don't study it because it's probably more of a philosophical conversation. But I do think there's a physics um, conversation to be had here. I really do believe
Mhm.
there's a physics conversation to be had here. Um,
Yeah, the only thing I was able to really find on short notice was, I mean, that we're basically made up of the constraints uh, that are in this particular system. So, Earth was basically made. There's certain constraints, certain rules, and once you combine those rules, then that's the only thing that makes us inevitable uh, product of those constraints.
yeah, but are we inevitable? Like that's the thing is like is are we a mathematical
You're
inevitability?
supposed to answer that, Edgar. That was the whole purpose of the show.
I still don't have the answer. I still I there's a big logical side, and the problem with science is that a lot of it isn't logical, and this is where I my fear is to say that we are a mathematical inevitability, right? If you drive your car enough, at
Mhm.
some point you will crash. But there's also a lot of humans that drive their entire life and they never get into a car wreck. They've never experienced a crash. And a lot of humans, like a lot of humans. But I would argue that if you give them enough time, it's not that they haven't crashed, they just don't live long enough or drive long enough to crash. So it's kind of that same idea is you give somebody 13 billion years and they're going to crash at some point. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be a collision, and that's the thing about statistics. It's a numbers game. It's at some point. That's quantum physics as well. That's what we need. The superposition is it can be wherever, statistically speaking, until
Mhm.
something measures it. And once it's measured, well, that's where it is. But before it gets measured, statistically speaking, it could be fucking anywhere. That
Right.
superposition.
That's why
Same
trees fall silently until somebody's around to hear them.
something is around here. So, anyways, I lean towards maybe. I
Maybe we were
genuinely
inevitable. I don't think we were inevitable. I just think it happened to happen. I don't
Well,
know.
that would be inevitable, though.
Um, there's no measurable probability. That's the only thing.
Somebody's got to
Well,
have the math. I did try to look for
inevitable would
the
mean
math.
100% probable. So I don't know.
I well, here's the thing. If we were made intelligently, then the answer is yeah, we were inevitable. It's 100%. If we were
Not
intelligently
everyone is.
what's that?
Not everyone.
No, intelligent creation, not the humans were. That's the other
Oh,
thing. You said that the perfection, not every human is perfect. Um,
right.
there's a lot of disease and there's a lot of bad shit that happens, and you can call those mutations. Um, so, anyways, I I lean towards believing that yeah, we were mathematical inevitability. It was going to happen whether we like it or not. Um, I don't know. It's just math. You're the one that said that math can explain all of this.
I don't know what state I was in when I said that. So
One of the
I will say that it probably can. Yeah, I think it can. It's just what's the formula? That's what I want to. That's what I'm
yeah,
trying to figure
it'd
out
be
here.
fun to find the math on all of this stuff. So I'm gonna try and look for the math because I'm sure somebody's got the math. Um,
Don't ask Chat GPT. It's
I
gonna.
won't ask ChatGPT. There was a long time ago when I was heavily into Christianity. Um, some human had done the science on the likelihood of all of the proteins combining to create a human, and it was pretty fucking small. Like the probability or the possibility really was tiny, tiny. But again, you give it enough time
Just
that
did an article on protein folding. Basically pointed to that it has to be some type of an intelligent design because the speed of protein folding. It's not something that you have the protein molecules. They don't just come together by random and then try to select a form. They actually just come together in that form instantaneously.
yeah. Huh.
Um, it has to be something that's giving these protein molecules the information beforehand to be able to fold it in that type of speed.
Yeah, but that yeah, we need to do more digging in. Maybe this one will have a part 2. At some point we'll revisit this. Because that's super interesting, right? It's and it goes back to the last thing I kind of brought up the RNA, which
Mhm.
the RNA is the information it kind of bonds it all together, and the proteins would have to communicate with each other. It's I'm gonna try and find that video that inspired this conversation and kind of read up on that a little bit more. But yeah, super interesting. But at any rate, we've been at it for almost an hour. Um, super duper appreciate the very few humans that like to be on. I appreciate that. I don't know. I think this was an interesting conversation. I think this is one of those conversations where it can be mind numbing because we have very little science, so it tends to gravitate towards the philosophical conversation more than anything else. But I find it
This
interesting.
subject this
What's that?
subject really made us true to the title of this entire program. I mean, the title of this channel, should I say,
Science
of this
dum dums.
show.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't feel smart right now.
For sure, for sure, for sure. But at any rate, appreciate everybody who's been on. Don't forget to share, do all the stuff that you know what to do with social media stuff. So, yeah, that's all I've got. I don't know if you've got closing remarks.
Yep. No one ever checks out my YouTube channel, but it's Engineer of Reality. So if anybody ever wants to check it
Engineer.
out, Engineer of Reality.
Engineer of Reality.
Yeah, like, subscribe, whatever needs to be done. I'm mainly on Facebook where I post a bunch of articles. I think I post one every day. Usually on Mondays, I'll post something about ADHD cognition on neuroscience. Um, that's been something I've been studying, but it's more so lived experience. So
Yeah.
I try to post those. I think I flip flop my post somehow um, because it posted today instead. Um, but yeah, so check that out. It's just my regular name, Richard Fletcher. That'll be my Facebook page. Come out and join discussions if you have anything to talk about with any of the articles that are posted. Definitely, I welcome all expertise from everyone.
Yeah, I think that's where there's that balance of we're here to learn from each other, and I definitely want to understand science a little bit more, not just physics, but science all in general. Um, I love physics more than anything else. This was entering more into the philosophical stuff, but also the physics stuff. Um, so yeah, hearing other people's thought behind all of this always helps. So um, duper appreciate the comments for sure. Wherever you post them. So I appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys maybe, probably, most likely next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Mountain. It's daylight time now. Mountain daylight time now. I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.